Now that we have our functions, all of our functions actually fetching and setting values, it's time to work on our show result. Now, let's go ahead and comment this out. Let's close the right panel there because we don't need that. Now we have a lot of space for our code. So now for our show results, the idea here is to get all of the results that we get from A through C and compute and then get a value and then decide whether the person is a Subaru person or a Ferrari person. Now, a disclaimer here. Obviously, this quiz here, this questionnaire here, it's not going to be something that will definitely tell whether you are a Ferrari person or Subaru person. It's just an application that we are creating so that we have an idea on how to put together a full application. Now, what do we need to do? Let's go ahead at the top here and create two more variables here. Let's call this var Subaru points. It's going to be type int. Let's give it 0 so we don't have issues. And this one's going to be Ferrari int. We use these two variables here to then check to see which one has more points, and then we can then say whether the person is Ferrari or Subaru. So here inside our scale slider change, let's go ahead and update our scale point here. Scale points, I think that's what we're called. Just give it the value that we are getting, scale values there. Okay, which is here. Inside of our press show result here button, show result pressed, this is where we are doing all the logic. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that all of our questions here or items or elements, all of our user interfaces elements here are not nil or don't have values that we can actually use to compute, right? So first thing, just to be safe, we go ahead and say if, let's start with the outdoor. Let's say outdoor switch is not equal to nil and fast switch is also not equal to nil and scale slider is not equal to nil. Only then we want to make sure we are going to proceed and do our logic. Inside here, that's when we are going to go ahead and start computing things. And so inside here, what we're going to do, we are going to have another if statement. So what are we going to check for here? We're going to check to make sure that the users have at least checked or selected if one question here, because we don't want cases where the user just come in and say show result when they haven't selected or answered any question. That would defeat the purpose. So we want to make sure we account for that. So what we're going to do, we're going to say here, if outdoor result is less than or equal to 0, and we're going to say fast car points again is less than or equal to 0, and again we're going to say Ferrari point is less than or equal to 0. If that's the case, I'm going to go put an else here. Okay, so we'll check for all of this value for this to be true. If this is true, if all of these values are less or equal to 0, less than or equal to 0, and for now we're going to go ahead and say print, please answer all questions. And else here inside we are going to run another set of if statements. So we're going to say if scale points is less than or equal to 5. What we want to do, we are going to say Subaru points. We're going to add outdoors result, and we're also going to add the fast car points, and we're going to add 4. Okay, well, I'll explain later. All right, so and also inside here, we're going to go ahead and say else. So this else here is for our if statement that we just created here. Else, we're going to just go ahead and say Subaru points is equal to outdoor result. So the same thing we had before, plus fast car points and plus 0. Okay, and then here we're going to go ahead and say Ferrari points is equal to outdoors result plus fast car points. We add 4. Okay, so let's see what's happening here. So the first thing we are checking to make sure that all of our items are not nil, so they have something. And then inside we're saying, okay, if outdoors result is less than or equal to 0 and fast car points is less than or equal to 0 and Ferrari points is also less than or equal to 0, then we want to say please answer all questions. So this will just print for us to know. Else, so if this is not true, so if they have selected something, we then gonna check to see if our scale points is less than or equal to 5. If that's true, then we're gonna add our Subaru points variable. We're gonna add this outdoor results, the fast car points, and we are gonna add 4. So that's the logic we have here. Now, why 4? Well, I just chose 4 because what I'm saying here, if our scale point, let's go ahead and open that again here. If our scale here is less than 5, which means towards 0, they're not that interested in fast cars. That's why we're just giving 4 points to our Subaru. Good. And else, if scale points is actually not less than or equal to 5, that means our Subaru will get 0 points instead of 4, because that means this person is more interested in the Ferrari. That's why we're adding 4 to our Ferrari points in addition to everything else. All right? And then here, say if, we're still inside this else statement here. So if, again, we're going to check for Subaru points. If Subaru points is less than Ferrari points, right now we're checking the final result. So if that's true, then this person is, we're going to say you are a Subaru person. So let's go print and say you are a Subaru person. Just going to copy this. Now, if that's not true, say else, right? So if Subaru points is less than Ferrari points, that means Ferrari points is more, and then this person is indeed a Ferrari person. Let's go ahead and here and say you are a Ferrari person. All right, so here's our logic. Let's go ahead and run this and see if this is actually going to work. All right, so let's try again. Let's go ahead and say show results. And it says here, please answer all questions. Great, because this is exactly what we wanted to happen, because we haven't selected anything here. Now let's go ahead and say, yes, I am an outdoor person. Let's say, do I enjoy fast cars? Let's say no. On a scale of 0 to 10, how often do you Google? Let's say about 3, 2. Let's see what's going to say. Yep, you are a Subaru person, because if you look at here, I'm more of an outdoor person and I don't really Google sports car that much. Great. So our application is indeed working. There's still a few things we need to do, but for now we have our logic working perfectly here. All right. Okay, so in the next video, we'll proceed tweaking things and we'll add a few more things to our application to make it final. I'll see you in the next video.